for having me. And I'd like to extend a special thank you to all the Interop people that are here today that have been working really hard on creating this conference. I do have to say this has probably been the most energizing conference I've been to in a very long time, and I'm appreciative for all of your hard work to make it come together. When Susan and Megan reached out to me and asked me to talk about the state of IT, I was extremely excited because this is actually something I've been passionate about for a very long time. If you think about how IT impacts the businesses and the places we work, it's really integral to what we do. And I've been on a journey actually over the last couple of years to start to understand how people view IT. And what I did was I put myself on another journey to look deeper, to look back at the last 20 years, to see how we implemented IT, how we ran our IT systems and organizations, and to see what's changed. You know, the things that I found actually were pretty startling. You know, if we think about just the basic numbers that wrap up IT had a great quarter last quarter. Spending was up 3.8%. We expect spending to go up even higher in the next year. But that's after quarter upon quarter of decline on spending in IT. And if you dig deeper into the numbers, you also find that it's the businesses inside your company that are buying things that should be bought through IT. It's not the IT department that is being utilized to deploy those systems. What that means is the company sees the value of tech. The company sees the value of the software, but it doesn't see IT as a partner to actually get those things deployed on time and maintained correctly for the business to be able to use them. This is because IT has been put into a box. In 2003, the Harvard Business Review put out a report that said IT doesn't matter. It's a pretty striking statement. But if you look at what they talk about, if you read the premise, all the things that they say are true. We have put IT in a box. We've said this is a thing that we need to consume, whether it be email, getting a phone, getting a computer, and that's what IT is there for. We've not looked at IT as our innovation engine. And that's causing some pretty strange things. We're actually seeing the IT workforce shrink. Google was just sounding the alarm a few days ago around the idea that they can't find enough educated workers to come work on their infrastructure systems and their IT systems. And the ones that they can find have been so used to a niche environment, a thing they do, a specialty, when what they really need are people that can look at the broad spectrum of how businesses use and understand technology and apply and build systems that help that business be successful. This has created an environment, this has created the exact environment that we can talk about where businesses are going outside of the IT box to get the services they need, and their big partner in this is cloud computing. Cloud computing is disrupting the way we look at services. You can get your email, you can get a file store, you can build infrastructure as a service in minutes when your IT department will take months, maybe even sometimes years. And if we look at how businesses are spending, you know, in 2017, cloud spending was $260 billion. In 2018, it's expected to be $305 billion. That's a 17% increase. It's growing much faster than we are in the IT groups. And it's also pushing established vendors out. If you look at what's happened over the last few months, we've seen that cloud vendors have started to say they want to completely own their ecosystem, everything from the net stack to the software. Juniper just lost 11% of its valuation on the stock exchange because they had missed expectations selling into cloud providers. Arista, just a week ago, an article came out that said Microsoft was considering not using vendors anymore, and Arista dropped 9%. Where do you think those vendors go when the cloud revenues dry up? Well, Juniper told us the next day. They said we're doubling down on enterprise. That means there's going to be more pressure for you to buy things from them and consume products that you may not need. And that's going to mean you're going to have to justify that to the business. You're going to have to understand why you can, don't need, or do need that service, but it's going to cost you more. In fact, if we look at the spending on non-cloud data center hardware, so the data centers that we build, that has actually decreased 18% from Q2 2015 to Q2 2017. And at the same time, spending on cloud infrastructure grew 35%. People see where they can get assets quicker and are driving towards that because the business needs speed. And in fact, this white label switching is actually transforming how we look at infrastructure at a cloud scale and should be transforming how we look at it in the enterprise. Things dramatically change when we can build things out ourselves and don't rely on a vendor to deliver them to us. But here's the problem. Most IT companies subscribe to the idea that this is too hard. They believe in that Harvard Business Review report that IT doesn't matter. But the truth is, it's never mattered more. So why isn't IT changing? We have to understand why IT isn't evolving with the rest of the market. And if we look at just some of the basic reasons, IT costs too much. We think what we buy and what we install, it costs way too much. How many times have you had to go to your leadership and ask for another 1.5 million or another 2 million for something that was actually just an incremental change or a licensing need on your network? And it took too long to get those services rolled out. When you need a fix, it takes you 90 days to get it rolled out because you have to go through all of the instances of rolling out, testing the patch, getting it from your vendor, and finally deploying it. You never see those problems in the cloud. And it's really confusing. It's hard for business leaders to understand why you need one type of router or switch, or why you need one type of software, or you need one type of license. So they basically throw their hands up and say, do what you got to do. But they still put you in that box. And if we think about it, what inside our ecosystem is different from 10 years ago? Not much. We still buy the same way. We still work with our vendors the same way. We still receive, our deployment times still take the same amount of time. We still receive support the same way. The only thing I could find to point to that was different is we now get to understand licensing. We get to manage licensing with our vendor. That's the only thing I could find in the ecosystem that was actually different. And if we think about it, we as IT and the companies we're supporting, because of the ways we've done things, we have a logo addiction. We believe that there are these really smart companies that are out there that we can consume things from, put them in place, and never have to worry about it, which is a completely false statement. But the company has gotten used to it. The problem is, these vendors don't have secret sauce anymore. Anything you can do with a big box vendor, you can do with a commodity vendor as well. And the truth is, you could be saving 70 to 80%. I'll say that one more time. 70 to 80% on your hardware purchases alone. If you think about and understand the ecosystem around circuits and services and software, you could also be saving another 80% in those areas as well. But the problem is, when you think about doing that, what does your vendor say? What do your technical resources in your VAR say? They deliver you fear, uncertainty, and doubt. They tell you, you can't do this. This is too hard. There's a reason why there's this big company here, and it's because we have all the smart people that you don't have. And they've created a situation where we actually believe we can't do this, that this stuff is hard. But that's not true. We see this every day. If we look at the open source communities, if we look at what people are doing with white box switching, we can learn that very quickly. There are good paths that allow us to transition to those technologies. They just have to be understood. And in fact, if we move to an ecosystem where we're not asking for 1.5 million or 2 million, or we're asking for small amounts of money, where we're reducing our CapEx expenditures by 70 to 80%, teams get freed. Chris Zaborski works at Nebula Works. I think he's the CEO. He said yesterday on Twitter a statement that sort of stuck with me. He said, the fact is, minimizing capital expenditures unshackles teams and allows them to experiment and iterate fast with greatly reduced risk. Isn't that what we want? We want teams, we want our team in IT to be able to build out products that we can consume, things that make the business work faster, things that make the business work better for us. And if we think about even the logo addiction we have, the ecosystem is so small. The hardware is not different anymore. There's no differentiation there. And if You think you're getting stable software from your big box vendor? You're kidding yourself. Think of all the security breaches that have just happened for Cisco in the last 2 months. People being able to log into routers and change configs. If we think about the Cisco ASA, we've known that that thing reboots every 213 days for years, and Cisco still hasn't fixed that. Think about all the bugs in Microsoft. Wasn't it Oracle that distributed a patch set that was something like 2,000 patches all in one load? They don't build great software, and they don't build software in the way you want it. They build it in the way they can sell it. There's no edge from buying from these companies anymore. What you buy from them, anyone can buy from them. The only thing you're haggling about is price. And in fact, if we look at what we can get from commodity vendors, white label vendors, it's exactly what Cisco is selling you, or Juniper for that matter. You actually consume a box built by a company, whether it be EdgeCore, Celestica, Action, that's built for Cisco. They paint it blue and put a Cisco label on it, and mark it up 80%, and you buy it. Or you can go to EdgeCore and get it for the price that EdgeCore sells it to Cisco. There's another issue with our ecosystem, our value-added resellers. The problem is VARs don't really want to help you do this. I was talking to a VAR friend of mine the other day about automation, about how it leads to reduced downtime, it leads to faster deployment, it leads to more concise work. And we got through talking about how that changes the ecosystem, and he looked at me and he said, "Are you telling me I'm going to have to reduce my billable hours because you've now automated the things I charge 8 hours for?" Yeah. VARs are not incentivized to make you more efficient. VARs are incentivized, and vendors are incentivized to do one thing: get revenue. That's how they're graded, it's how they're promoted, it's how they make their bonuses. That does not mean that they're there to deliver the best solution for you. We have to start thinking about how we can do this ourselves. I'll give you an example. So I was at a company. We decided to build a cloud system for ourselves, a small one, 40 boxes, all Linux containers, just so that we could spin up microservices. First thing our team did was they walked out to their vendors and they asked, how do we do this? The vendors were the smart guys. We started with a team of 8 people. We thought it would take us 6 months to build it. 3 years later, the team was 120 people and had overspent by millions. Because what we were trying to do was take what the vendor had and plug it into a square, into a round hole. And the product still doesn't work to this day. The company is still spending millions with outside cloud providers because they can't get their own system to work. The vendor in this situation created a complete mess, and the tech teams that were there to evaluate those vendors and then decide on the technical path they should take did not think about how the business worked. They didn't think about how things worked inside the companies, how code was exchanged. They just thought about building a thing. And that created a disconnect from what they could have provided for the company and what they did provide. IT has to change. We are at the moment where we have all the tools and capabilities and communities that allow us to start reinvesting in ourselves, start reinvesting in our tech teams, start believing that we can build things and become a true partner to the businesses we support. We can start driving innovations inside our businesses. We can start providing tools that allow them to move faster. And the truth is, the old saying that the big eat the small, that doesn't matter anymore. It's the fast that eat the slow. And the slower your company is, and the more you slow the company down, the faster it's going to fail. But there is a transition. You have to think about the culture that your company has, and you have to try to influence it. You have to recognize where things might not work. Just think about this. Ask these questions yourself as we go through them. If you can ask yourself, in my company, is information actively sought? Do I feel that way? Are failures learning opportunities? Do we not kill the messenger? Or are failures something we hurt ourselves with? You know, I've heard of companies that based on how many minutes of downtime you have, your bonus goes down. That is a terrible reinforcement mechanism. It doesn't make people actually work better. It makes people blame each other for outages so they don't get their bonuses deducted. Are responsibilities shared? Are you able to consume things from other parts of the business, whether it be inside IT or outside of IT? Are you able to give things for people for them to be able to consume that we can all trust are going to work? And is cross-functional collaboration encouraged? Does it matter who owns the product, or does the product matter, the thing we're trying to do? Does one group have to own all of it, or can we work through multiple groups to make it even better? And are new ideas welcomed? If you're in an environment where people are telling what you have to do, and they know what you have to do, and new ideas aren't welcome, this probably won't work for you. But we know that all businesses shouldn't work that way, and we should be building out a culture that allows us to do this. Now that you've asked that about yourself and how you feel, think about from your company's perspective. How does it work? Ask these same questions and start thinking about why it is that way. Part of my exploration, journey into this talk was talking to a lot of engineers about how they feel about how IT and technology is viewed in their company. And this engineer, he didn't want to be named, but said something that really resonated with me. The aggressive technological competition that nourishes better and more savvy management exists only in Silicon Valley. I'll let you read the rest of it. But it really clawed at me. Are we saying the only place we can do tech right is in Seattle and San Francisco? The more I thought about it, the more I realized I don't believe this statement. In fact, I completely disagree with it. What we're saying is that we have to build out cultures that support technology being a partner to the business. And let's do some really easy things. Stop calling ourselves IT. No one likes that. It has very negative connotations, and it really doesn't talk to what you do. You're a technology partner to the business. Someone was telling a story the other day of working at a chemical company, and he'd go to them, he ran the IT department, he'd go to them and he'd ask for funds or new things they needed or things that they could innovate on, and the leaders always said, "We don't do tech. We're a chemical company." And he'd sit there and he'd go, "Okay, so how do you get your orders? How do you know what to build? How do you know where to ship it? How do you know what your chemical structure should be? Isn't that all delivered by your tech systems?" Believe it or not, you're a tech company and a chemical company. We have to create that business partnership. Let's stop thinking like IT, a company or a group that consumes a product and rolls it out for a company to use it, and let's start understanding what the company is doing. We have to merge software and networks. The ability to understand how software is impacting your network and your network is impacting your software, how to make it better, how to iterate and create change in that environment is extremely crucial in how we deliver services to our business partners. And we have to measure. We have to be able to look at the company and say, we reached these outcomes. We provided these new services. We provided this ROI. We are able to fail over very, very quickly. And here's the proof of how valuable this technology stack is to this company. And most importantly, we have to believe in ourselves. You know, Grace Hopper has this statement, or this quote that runs around on Twitter every once in a while. It says, people have an enormous tendency to resist change. They love to say, we've always done it this way. I try to fight that. We have to instill that sense of partnership with the company and ourselves in a way that allows us to say, we can do things better and believe that we can. And it's not just tech companies. Home Depot has announced that they're hiring 1,100 IT tech staff by the end of 2018 because they recognize that technology has a huge impact on their business. Everything from how they deliver products to the stores, how customers interact. And if you look at what they say in their statements, it's very hopeful. They're not talking about just needing new email. They're talking about how they interact with their customers, experiences online, experiences through mobile apps, experiences in checkout, how they get products to stores faster. This all drives a fundamental connection between their business and their customers and is enabled through technology. They're a lumber place. They sell nuts and bolts. If they understand how tech can change the relationship they have with their company and their customers, anyone can. I'll leave you with one other example. one of the engineers that consumed the mess that we talked about earlier left and went to Hulu. And Hulu has a blog post about this. They built something called Donkey. What he did when he got there was he took 3 guys in a 10-man DevOps team and said, look at how we use infrastructure. Look at how we can build out a cloud service for ourselves and build it. Those 3 guys, using Python, were able to build the exact product that a mess could not in 6 months, the original target. That product's been in place for 3 years, and this company holistically owns it. They can change it. They can make it do what they want it to do in an instant, in a 2-week sprint. They don't have to ask a vendor for a change of a feature. They don't have to go to a company and ask why their software works a certain way. They know. And it's free, except for personal costs, which are millions upon millions less than what they would have paid to a vendor to get this stuff done. Okay, Peyton, great examples. Yeah, there's some problems in the industry, but how do I do it? How do I understand how to change? How do we convey that to our business partners? And how do I build a roadmap to make this stuff happen? The answer is communities. Communities have been one of the most important parts of the open source software revolution. People are continually talking about problems, ways to solve it, experiences they've had. And you have a lot of technical communities out there that you can go read. Over the last few months, though, and through this exploration, a group of people I'm working with myself have come to the realization that we don't have one thing. We don't have a place where business leaders can go learn and understand how tech is important, or a place where technology leaders can learn how to talk to the business. So enter the Open Enterprise Foundation. The Open Enterprise Foundation is a group of people that are going to do things like build internships in web-scale companies, so companies that are smaller, that want to understand how to change, can send a business leader, and they can start looking at how technology revolutionizes that company and how they can apply those lessons. We're going to provide mentorships from people in those companies so that business leaders can reach out and ask people that have done this before how they made the transition. We're going to create communities where people are able to talk online. We're going to create papers around success and failure, because you learn a lot from failure, in the ecosystem. And we're doing it with a great group of partners. We've already built our relationship with the Linux Foundation. We're building our partnerships with many, many open source relation groups. We are there to not only allow the business leaders to understand how to transform their company, but also to create an environment where they can look at the open source ecosystem and understand where to invest, where to send their engineers to learn things, what works best for their company. In closing, I'd like to say a few things around the idea of how IT can impact companies. If you look at what we do today, everything that we provide to companies, think about it if we owned that ecosystem and we were able to provide multiple services at a much faster pace and iterate on those services. We now become an integral part of that company, not just something they consume out of the box. Thank you.